How is it going, everyone? We are live. We are now live and back again with the Biz Dev Show with Lamar Woods. Today, what we're going to be talking about is how to find the right dev partner. How do you find the right technology company to partner with, right? In today's world, there are so many developers out there. There are developers with the internet connecting us all. There's developers in India who you can speak with. There's developers in the UK you could speak with, Ukraine, Brazil, everywhere, right? And every single company wants to label themselves as a great technology partner. Nobody wants to say we aren't the best idea for you, right? So today, what we're going to talk about is specifically how do you take all of these choices and simplify it down into the right choice for you and for your company, for your solution, right? So let's get right into it. When you're thinking about this situation, you got to, of course, find these multiple reasons why some person or some company is differentiated from another. And essentially, on top of that, you've got to do more than just think about, okay, well, there's a sea of people and I need to find the right one. You need to also think about if they can build it good the first time, if they can build it right, is that all that I need? Right? So you've got to think beyond just getting this piece of software made. The ability to make the right decision comes down to being able to think through your requirements, the ability to think through your specific circumstances, right? If I get this built by X company, what does that mean? Are they going to support my needs beyond this one application, beyond this one feature, beyond this one thing I asked for? Can they help strategize around the full technology and not just deliver on the one thing that I asked for? If I asked them to do the wrong thing, would they be able to tell me it was the wrong thing? Or would they just get it done and take my money? These are things that you should be thinking about. So before I get too far into it, let me just tell you guys who we are here at Woods&Tech. At Woods&Tech, we are a software consulting company that helps people with their mobile applications. That's exactly where we specialize, but we can also consult on the full spectrum of technology. So if you're curious around exactly how you're going to get a specific thing done through technology, then reach on out to us and we will be able to have a conversation and help you strategize around that there. We are setting up discovery calls, and with these discovery calls, you can request that we record our meeting and send you a follow-up with the strategies that we've talked about after the meeting. So, now that we've gotten into that, who are we? We have been a company for around 4 years. And I personally, the founder, have been in technology for around 10 years. So I've been on many different projects and many different organizations in different verticals, in different industries, and I've found many things to be incorrect with typical consulting, and I found many things to work well with typical consulting, right? So with that experience, I've been able to see where some companies go wrong and some companies go right, right? Let's get right into this today and talk about how you can be one of the companies that does it right. So when you choose a tech partner, there are three main routes that you're going to go, right? You're either going to find a freelancer, right? You're going to find a technical co-founder, right? Or you're going to talk about a development firm. Now, depending on the size of your organization, you might already have a CTO, and that CTO might already have his or her hands full with the work that's already on your plate. if you are making a lot of money in your business, then you will probably have your full staff, and the full staff will have a full plate, each of them, right? So the three different routes that every company goes through is, do I hire a freelancer? Do I bring someone new onto the tech team? Or do I hire a development firm? Now, there are different pros and cons to each of these. So before I get into how you make a decision, I want to talk about these three common choices and what the pros and cons of each of them are, right? If you hire a freelancer, then you are essentially hiring someone who's a one-person shop, probably, probably young, and or it's possible to have some experienced ones, but they're few and far. The pros of a freelancer is that they can move quick and that they will listen to you and your needs. They will pay attention to you, and you'll be able to get more time from them because of their specific situation. They need that client. They need that one project, and so therefore they have to be attentive at all times. Also, the pros of a freelancer is they are most likely cheap. Most freelancers have a low hourly rate, lower than what you could hire an employee for, and much lower than what you could hire a CTO for, right? So they are cheaper, and they're the cheapest of all the three. They're the cheapest of all the three. They're probably the most attentive of all the three. But that's if they are freelancing without a job, right? They don't have a 9-to-5. There are situations, and this is one of the cons of freelancing. You have to ask specific questions around who the freelancer is and what their time is like. How do they spend their time? Where do they make their money typically? If they have a 9-to-5 job and your project is just something that they do at night and on the weekends, then you want to think very carefully around this decision. Because if you choose to put your investment into this freelancer, then it's possible that one, they're not going to be committed to the project. They're going to be committed to their employer first. That's just the way it's going to be. It's also possible that they give up on the project because maybe it becomes too large for them. It becomes too hard for them. X, Y, or Z happens. They don't have much obligation. They don't have a company whose reputation they need to uphold. A freelancer that doesn't have a company or that has a 9-to-5 is just less tied to you and your needs. They're less tied to customer service. And you need to be thinking about this as you're choosing which of the three it's going to be. So let's move over into the CTOs. If you bring in a CTO, this is what I would recommend for any startup who doesn't already have one. If you don't already have a CTO and you know that you need to build your team out, you most likely want to go to some college events, go to some startup events, find people in the community, and you will be able to find a CTO that will come in, and it could end up being even cheaper than the freelancer. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to give up some equity for that CTO to stay around. And if you're beyond the startup phase, then you're going to have to be paying the CTO more than what a freelancer would cost, and definitely more than what an average employee would cost. It's just that their requirements are much heftier. They need much more experience, and therefore they command a larger price tag, right? So CTOs would be considered a step up from a freelancer in terms of their commitment level to the project, their price, right? But they've also got their own cons, which is you'll probably end up having to give some equity or a large paycheck depending on the stage of the company. If you're just starting out, no one has anything, then they'll be even cheaper than a freelancer. If you if you're already at a certain point and they can see viability in the company, let's say they stay around for a year, you're going to have to give up equity, which could end up costing more than a freelancer depending on how things go. You even larger than a startup, you're a full-blown business, you've got good revenues coming in, it's going to cost way more than a freelancer, and it's going to cost you way more than an employee. There's a lot to this, and so what you'll probably need to do is come back to this live, just save it. You can hit the like button, and it'll save it to your like videos. If you're loving this information, let me know. But essentially what you need to do is you need to think through these three different choices, these three different options. And what I also recommend is that every company needs an advisory board to some extent. Every company needs an advisor, whether it's official or unofficial. So what you need to definitely make sure that you're doing is you need to make sure that you are getting advised on this. Set up some calls with someone who does some advising. Find an advisor in the community. Find a mentor in your community that works in the same sort of industry. And when you do that, you will be able to think about this with some experience, right? That's what I want you to do. And now that we've talked about freelancers and CTOs, which are all viable options, let's talk about development firms. Let's talk about full-blown development companies that offer this. And Woods&Tech is, of course, an example of that. A development firm is going to cost more than a freelancer. So whereas a freelancer, you might be able to get a freelancer for $20, $30 an hour. If you go to some less developed countries, you can get a freelancer for $18 an hour. It's possible. With a development firm, with a development shop, what you end up getting into is higher prices because they offer a higher quality service to their customers. They offer a high quality service to their customers, and they also have a brand to maintain. So not only do they need to get projects, but they need to do well on those projects. They need to deliver on those projects, and they need to always be growing. You're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that increased level of quality and that increased level of brand when you get a development firm, when you work with a tech shop. Now, do you need that level of quality? I would argue a lot of times you do. But depending on the stage of your company, if you started your company yesterday and you don't know whether or not you're actually going to need work a month from now, you might just want to try building it on your own. Most people don't have real tech skills, and so if they are in that beginning phase, the company hasn't made any money yet, you have no idea how you're going to make revenue, I would recommend getting yourself a freelancer at that point. So, very new company, no revenue, no idea how you're going to make it. Do it yourself or get a freelancer. If you have an idea of where the company's heading, you might be a little bit beyond that phase, right? But you still aren't making a lot of money. You can't pay a major employee salary, which the price of a software developer these days is about $100,000 a year. If you're going to get someone who knows what they're doing, you're going to pay just about $100,000 a year. Do you have $100,000 in the bank, or let's just say 50? Do you have $50,000 in the bank? Because with that, if you got a sales team, you should be able to use the work that the developer is doing and expand out and get your contracts out to be able to keep them long term. So, stepping it back, the development firm. Make sure that your company is experienced enough to know what it's doing, to have a plan for itself, and also bringing in revenue, because you will need to pay for this development firm. This will not be free, and it will not be as cheap as a freelancer, but you also get a higher level service, right? The cons of a development firm. Didn't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to tell you. Of course I do. Of course I'm keeping it 100 here. The cons of a development firm is that it's possible for a development firm, because they need to make money, because they need to feed their employees, it's possible that a development firm will not be able to pay 100% attention to your project because they are continuously bringing in new projects. They could have 20, 30 projects in the pipeline. With 20 or 30 projects in the pipeline, how can they spend 100% of their focus on yours? So what you need to do is you need to know exactly what you need from a development firm. You, just like I spoke on in the beginning of the stream, you need to think through what your needs are, and you need to think through exactly how much communication you're going to require from them, and be upfront with it in the beginning. Be upfront with the development firm and say, I would like to connect with you on a bi-weekly basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. If you set these terms in the beginning, then a development firm can be the greatest idea for you. It can be the best of all three. You get the high quality service and you get the relationship that you need. You can trust in that relationship. And that's really what you have to think about, is price and trust. When you're thinking of these three different companies, these three different options, I'll say, you need to think about price and trust, and exactly how much the price and trust matter on different levels depending on the stage of your organization. So think about these different things and think about these three options that you have. Let's go ahead and go farther, and let's say that you found 5 options, 5 different development firms that you're thinking of going with, or 5 different freelancers. If you got 5 different CTOs, then it's pretty simple. How much experience do they have? But when it comes to the freelancer or the development firm, things can get a bit more complicated. So let's go a little bit further and think about how you differentiate from 6 different development firms. How do you decide which one is for you? So there are a few decision points that you need to essentially grapple with, that you need to think about before you even engage the 6, right? You need to think about their processes. You need to think about the experience that they have, right? You need to think about their price. You need to think about the length of the relationship you need from them. And you need to think about the people on their team, the specific people that would be working on your project. So let's just start off with processes. There are tons of different processes in a development firm, and you need to have an idea of what the process would be like if you were to work with them. What are their project management processes like? Do they have processes and systems built around it? What are change requests like? How do you get something changed when you find out you wanted it blue and the developer made it yellow? How do you manage defects? If there's a defect in the code base, how does that play out if you've already paid all of the money? If you've already paid for all of your development, how exactly do you get a defect change? Is that a new cost that you have to incur, or do they go back? And what if there's 5? What if there's 3? Do you get the first one for free and the next 2 costs? Do you get the first 5 for free and the 6 costs? You need to be thinking about this, and you need to make sure you have this conversation. And these will allow you to think through, okay, the processes of this development firm are more aligned with what I need than the processes of this one. All right? So there are other processes that you got to think through, but at a high level, you just want to ask some of these questions and let them tell you. And sometimes you don't need to be an expert in all this. You see, this is a lot of in-depth conversation I'm giving. right? This is a lot of in-depth conversation we're having right now on the stream. But what you need is just to know that the company is thinking about these things. They've thought about this and they care to share the information with their customer. If they start to obfuscate, right? If they start to hide what's going on here, then you can tell off the bat that the trust is weak. You can tell that your trust with that company is going to be weak. And what you want in a development partner is you want them to be able to do a good job, and you want to be able to put your trust in them, right? If you're just going to boil this entire stream down to it, it's about finding someone who can do the job, who you can trust, right? So a couple quick other processes that we can talk on real quick. We've already talked about defect management. There's also code review processes. There's collaboration with customers. What would that be like? Taking feedback. How exactly do we give you feedback when we feel like something needs to change, or when we feel like something is good or something is bad? Frameworks and best processes around decision making. How do they make decisions when you're not in the room? You should be able to ask this question, and they will answer in some way. Hopefully they don't try and just puff you up, but if they can give you an answer that you can tell they thought about, then that's a good sign. That's a good sign. All right, so we've talked about processes. Let's move into experience. How much experience does this company have? How many projects have they worked on? What level of quality do you see from those projects? If they've only worked on 1 or 2 projects, then they should definitely be commanding a lower price tag, right? If they've worked on 5, 10 projects, then you should be definitely paying more. You should definitely be paying more. And just know that you can trust this organization's quality a bit more than you can trust the developer or the organization with only 1 or 2 projects to show. Make sense? So the quality of the projects in their portfolio matters. The similarity is really the second phase to this. It's really just the second half of the experience game, is the similarity between the project that you want to bring to the company and the projects that they have in their portfolio. If you're working on a marketplace application, I just got off a call not too long ago with someone who was building a marketplace, and I had to tell them, hey, I've built things in the industry that you're in, but definitely haven't built a marketplace application for this industry. And that clarity allowed this potential customer to make their own decision. They'll get back to me sometime soon with whether or not they want to go with us or go with another company. But first thing you should do is figure out whether or not the company is truthful, right? Can you trust the company that you're working with, that you're thinking about working with? So write down a list of questions. Think about exactly what you need from the company and write down a list of questions to ask them and figure out whether or not they will answer truthfully or whether they are going to try and hide that information from you. So the 2 parts of experience: the quality of the projects in their portfolio and the similarity between those projects and the project that you want to bring to the company, the project that you are working on currently, right? That experience is important, and it allows the company, it allows this dev shop to work around issues. It allows them to work around potential struggles that they will get through, because every single project will have hiccups and it will have bumps. And without experience, it holds up the process by a bit longer. So let's move on. Price. We've talked about price multiple times in the stream, and what I really just need to say here is you need to think about the price of the software. What is your budget? Every development shop has a varying degree of quality and a varying degree of price, right? The price varies at each one of them. Look at the portfolio, look at the team that they have. Ask specifically, if I get this project built with you, who would be working on the team? And use that to see whether or not you feel the price is justified. Just be expecting that, just like I talked about the three options that you have earlier, freelancer, CTO, and development firm, the higher the quality, the more the price. You will have to be prepared for that, and don't go to a freelancer saying, "Hey, I want you to put all the bells and all the whistles, and oh yeah, I need it done by 2 weeks from now." You can't do it. And in the same breath, don't go to a development firm with 100 products in their portfolio, 20, 40, 50 projects in their portfolio, and say, "I'd love you to do a $500 engagement with me." It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So what you need to do is think about the budget that you have and think about the price that this would cost, because a lot of shops have extra developers on the bench, as they call it, and you don't want to bring too low of a budget to a company, because what they'll do is they'll just take the most inexperienced guy that they have, and they say, "Oh, well, okay, we'll take the cheap project, we'll put our cheap developer on it." You get what you pay for, and that's a universal rule, right? Don't let that hang up your project. Think about the price and ask the company who's going to be on the project. Next thing I want to talk about here is the length of the relationship. The length of the relationship that you believe you will need with your development firm. Some projects are one and done. You only need something that's going to be used as a promotional piece. Let's say it's for an event, right? Let's say you're putting together an event and you need a website that displays exactly what all the information for the event will be. You're probably not going to need the same developer in the future. Once this piece of software is built, once this website is built, you probably won't need to call them back unless it doesn't work for some reason. Where that's different is a startup. If you're a startup and you're working on some technology that you haven't even bulletproofed yet, you have no idea how exactly the revenue is coming in, but you do have enough money for a development firm or for a freelancer, you have to think about, oh, well, if I realize that this is not the route we need to go, we actually need to pivot and go in an entirely different direction, will I be able to get that same level of quality? How will I get that same developer to work with me again? For a larger shop, you probably won't get that same developer. It's possible, if you try and set up the terms beforehand, which is why I'm talking to you today. Think about what you need before you start the conversation. But the chances are slim. A large organization will have their developers tied up in a new engagement the moment your project ends. If we're talking about a freelancer who doesn't have an organization, he doesn't have a business, it's just a guy and his laptop, he most likely will be busy. He'll be working on an entirely different project, and he won't be able to spend any time with yours. And he also might decide that he just wants to work at his 9 to 5. He might just decide that, he's going to pause freelancing. It happens. And so you would be unable to contact this developer or get his work in the future. What you need to think about is, how long do I need this engagement to be? If the engagement is going to definitely just be this one project, this one feature set that I'm asking for, it's all right to go to a major organization and not have to worry about whether or not you'll get the same developers. It's all right to go to a freelancer and not worry about whether or not you're going to get this developer back. In any situation other than that, You're a startup and you think you're gonna need more features. You're a larger organization, but you haven't fully figured out all of the things that you want to go inside of your application. You're probably gonna need that developer back. You're probably gonna need them back, and you're not gonna want to waste time with another company paying money essentially for them to first understand what's going on in your project and then paying them to add more to it. You want longevity. You want to take the investment that you've already put into it and get more out of it. You want to get more mileage out of it. And so think about the length of time that you would need to lock down this developer's time. You know, how much time do you actually need from him? What sort of relationship? Is this a long-term relationship or a short-term relationship? And if it's over today, how bad would that be? Right? So, we've talked about how the length of relationship should be thought about, and we talked about the size of the organization and how that can affect whether or not you'd get that availability again. Last thing we'll talk about is the team, the people. We've already spoken on this in multiple of the other points. That's why I have it last here. When it comes to the people, you want to ask the question, who is on the team? Who is working on my project? You want to be able to know exactly how long have they been working? What's the experience of these folks like? Beyond their experience, you want to know, is it possible that when I come back, I'll be able to work with them again, right? And if there's a change that needs to happen, let's say that I'm not happy with this specific developer on the project. Either he's not collaborating well with my team, or I'm not liking the quality that this developer or this designer is putting out. What is it like for me to change out someone on the team? Is it simple or is it impossible? You should be asking these questions as you're getting ready to get into an engagement with a company. Take this list of key points that I've brought to you and use that to come up with a list of questions. And when you're getting ready to jump into an engagement, ask the developer, ask the development firm exactly what they have to say around each of these questions. And you will be in a far better spot, and you will be able to be a far happier customer because of this upfront work that you are doing. Most software development projects today end up going over budget and over on time. It's just the nature of the beast. And if you don't think ahead for all of the different parts of the project, all of the different things you need from the company, then the chances of that actually happening skyrocket. The chances skyrocket, and your ability to be happy with the work that was done plummets. So think about these things that I've shared with you today. If you're curious about some technology, you want to start getting something worked on, then reach on out to me. Head on over to woods&tech.com and set up a call. You can use the book a call page to either book a conversation or to start a conversation asynchronously using the chat box. And I will be able to have a conversation with you and get you on the right path. All right, guys. Have a great day.